Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, it's only an exhibition if you lose, and we've got leather on the line in the LBK this week. Red Raiders and Horned Frogs battling for the saddling. We get to it all next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. And thanks as always to those making us their first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege and use our code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100 at prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Daily fantasy sports made easy with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, we are back after an open football week and football to discuss coming up as the battle for the saddle is upon us. And in just a few days, we got a Thursday night throwdown right back here in the LBK. But maybe something I didn't foresee, Chris, is kicking off this week with basketball on the brain. It's an exhibition if you lose the game. But the Red Raiders did no such thing. The unintentional rhyme master in the building this morning, 89-84, as Tech tops the Aggies, who are coming into this season, preseason top 15. You won't find this game represented in the win-loss column, Chris, but I'll tell you what, it's got this Texas Tech basketball fan pretty excited and pretty antsy to get to the real stuff, man. If this was a debut for Grant McCasland, it was an electric one and one that you wind up winning there in Denton.
Yeah, there's, and to be clear, neither one of us were there.
Right.
I think it was not broadcast anywhere or anything like that. I had simply just talked to people that did attend and all those things. But I think this was a cool deal for Grant personally as well, because he goes back to kind of the school that kind of gave him a shot, that they were able to tribute, give him a tribute before the game started. And then I think there was tons of Tech fans there. I mean, I know Wade Taylor, who played one of the guards for A&M after the game, said, it felt like a road game. And so even though all the seats in there are green, so it's just kind of a weird dynamic there on a Sunday afternoon. But I think Grant McCasland and Buzz Williams both pushed their chips to the middle of the table and was like, this is important. We want to try to win this. It's not about let's get everybody in the game. Let's just we're not going to worry about the result. No, I think they coached it like a game in November that would count. And it's almost November, but not quite. This one doesn't count. But to give you an idea, this is like if this were to be like November 8th or past that, this is like a quad one win. Like if it would have counted. That's how big of a – because you're right, the Aggies are loaded. They've got 9 returners back, 4 starters back. This was a 7 seed from the tournament last year. I think they finished like second or third in the SEC with a 15-3 conference record. They have the SEC Player of the Year in Wade Taylor, as we just mentioned. And it was a starting point for you. You've got a lot of new pieces and new staff. And I'll tell you, remember the pace of play people that were like, they're going to be lucky to score 45 points. They walk it up there in Denton. I mean, Grant McCasland is like, thumbs his nose up to the pace of play, folks, because you drop 89 in your second exhibition game, and it just shows you this team is very athletic. They want to get out and run, and you know what? I think that the funny thing is, I don't know if this team will ultimately reach where Grant wants them to ultimately be defensively, or maybe even on the glass. But good coaches adapt, and I think what he's seeing right now is that I have a group of athletes. We've coached getting it up and down the floor. We mentioned the 3-and-3 deal recently, and so, anyways. But I thought that was kind of fun. That not only do you win, but you win it scoring basically 90 points.
Not sure I saw that one coming, and not sure I saw it coming offensively on the heels of 34 3-point attempts. I mean,
yeah, man.
I think like 11 of your first 14, 15 shots or something were from beyond the arc. So I was having to rub my eyes, wondering if I'm seeing things correctly here in the box score as we followed there online or followed via, I don't know, a buddy's FaceTime or whatever you may have had on the scene there in Denton. And you've probably seen some highlights by now from those in person. But look, I kind of feel like that scene in the movie Heavyweights, Chris, where they party all night and then they wake up on the campground. And they're like, what the hell what did we do last night? Like, this was an exhibition, because there's an exhibition aspect. There is a new head coach debut aspect. And then it's the Aggies on the other bench at the end of it. And I know these players may not like remember that Tech fans hate the Aggies or anything like that, but it seemed like the Tech fans remembered, oh yeah, we don't like this team over there.
Grant
We're
knows,
into it.
And Grant knows this.
Yes.
Very much so. He was here years ago when the Aggies were very much still in the league. But yeah, and they've there were some discussions you never know how this stuff goes and like what's best for everybody but there's been discussions between these two programs, and like, your coaches have changed a bit, and there's some different philosophies there, or budgets or available dates or whatever. But there was some discussion, I want to say it started 3 or 4 years ago, about playing A&M in December at Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, and then lo and behold, you're going to end up playing Vanderbilt in Dickies Arena in Fort Worth this December. But I think there's some interest there. I don't think that Buzz Williams or Grant McCasland would be opposed to that. I don't know what that looks like in the future from a scheduling standpoint, because basketball schedules, the MTE, which is when they go to the Bahamas and everybody goes to Maui or Kansas City or Brooklyn or whatever, those are usually locked in years ahead of time. But then everybody always gets these other games, and so I wouldn't rule out something with A&M in the future. Obviously, not going to be this year because you've just done that in exhibition format. But yeah, I mean, it would be a fun, and it would always be, I'm guessing, a neutral site situation if you did. But Fort Worth kind of makes a lot of sense for all parties. But maybe after Buzz Williams saw how many Tech fans showed up in Denton, of all places, he may go, I don't know about this. This isn't best for Aggie basketball. Who knows?
Yeah, so I may be trying to reel back in some enthusiasm from last night, because it was just game one. It was just an exhibition, but it was a win over the Aggies. And it just so happens the Aggies are expected to have a good basketball team this season. So there are several layers to this to kind of process as we get ready for Tom, Dick, and Harry U, coming into the USA for this regular season opener and then the non-conference run. And it's just going to be up to all of us to digest what we saw or heard or watched or followed last night and to do it appropriately. But I'm waving the banner today. Why are we not top 15 preseason after that display? Chris, speaking of displays, let's get to a couple of individual efforts. And I think the conversation, as you see there on the screen, has to begin with one Pop Isaacs. I don't know why I put the possessive apostrophe there on Goes Bananas to indicate he possesses these bananas, I guess. I don't know. That's my mistake, so don't get caught up in that. Talking to myself right now. 30 points for Pop Isaacs. 6 for 10 from beyond the arc, 9 for 13 from the field, and 6 for 9 from the free throw line. If you wanted to pick anything apart, maybe you like a little better clip at the charity stripe. I don't know. But the dude was looking like what Tech really needs him to look like, Chris. I hate to put too much on him, but yeah, 30 might be called for a few times here this season. What a debut for him for the year. And after a tumultuous offseason for everybody, this is a guy that you kind of look at least I do as a fan, and maybe even a more appreciative way. And I was a big Pop fan last year, but he endures the change. He sticks with Texas Tech. And our first glimpse in the McCasland era of Pop Isaacs is a 30 hammer he's dropping on the Aggies.
Yeah, I'll get to Pop in a second, but because I'm always curious of who plays, how many minutes they play, like what's it look like, what's the thought process, and I think it's pretty clear Grant wanted to win this game, and coached it as such. But like Drew Steffi didn't play, Kyron Lindsey didn't play, Demarion Williams did not play in this deal, so he went with 10 guys. I don't know if there's injury issues or whatever, or if they're just like, hey, this would have been our rotation. I'm not real sure. Was not there. Not privy to that. But I think the most impressive thing about Pop is that
First, today's episode brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company, changing the non-alcoholic beer game one drop at a time, and it's time for your game changer of the week. This week, we're hitting the hardwood, where it was tied at 82 with 107 left in the game between Tech and A&M when Pop Isaacs would go on a personal 4-0 run, giving Tech a lead they wouldn't give up in their 89-84 win in Denton over the Aggies. And just like Pop Isaacs, Athletic Brewing Company is changing the game with non-alcoholic beer that tastes good. Great tasting, award-winning, and you're going to find more than 50 styles at athleticbrewing.com. But what you're never going to find is a hangover with Athletic Brewing Company. Change the game by finding Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic beer at a store near you or online at athleticbrewing.com. And right now, first-time customers can get 15% off your first online order by using our code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKED ON for 15% off your first online order. Near beer, exclusions, and conditions apply. Find Athletic Brewing Company at athleticbrewing.com today. Fit for all times. Today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has you covered with everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road. Or if you're just looking to elevate your car's game to the next level of performance, they got what you're looking for with roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, superchargers, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether you're looking for speed, power, or design, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. So just head over today to ebay.com/motors, where you're going to always find exactly what you're looking for, and with no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die ride on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply.
I think the most impressive thing about Pop is that he scores 30 and he plays only 23 minutes. I think, a couple of turnovers was all. I think he drew, I want to say like 7 fouls in this game. But this was super efficient. And he's going to have nights like this where he just blows up on somebody and he's really hot. He can be streaky, but I think that, Pop's challenge is that, I think he's trying to be a lot more consistent. And I think Grant has made him and will continue to make him a better defender. We forget last year, much of the season, he had surgery on his hip in the summer, and it's a fairly lengthy rehab. And I think that's what kind of, stymied some of his, I don't know, his ability to really get down and all that, and close out and some of those things, as the season went along last year, because it was the same surgery. I want to say that Clarence Nadolny had the year before, but I think now Pop is healthy, and I think that makes a huge difference. But the elite level shot, quick release, and some of those things, man. I mean, because when he's pouring them in, it's just. But I think what you see here is that he's able to. He had a huge steal at the end of this game. Took care of the ball. Made a couple of clutch free throws. I mean, that's the evolution of this young man, is like kind of how much more well. He's not just some 3-point. Sharpshooter. I mean, there's a lot more that he can do for a team, and I think that too. It's worth pointing out this team's only going to go as far as like their guards take them. I think ultimately, because there's a few things that are a bit of a concern. Warren Washington doesn't score. Darion Williams only scores 7, ends up fouling out, and so you're not going to be this big team with a lot of size. This isn't 2 years ago when you had 6'6", 6'7" across the board. But Chance McMillan, I think, is going to be a fun addition here. Mm-hmm. But Joe Toussaint, his ability to kind of guard on the ball, I think, is a great compliment to what Chance and Pop do. And I mentioned Joe because you see who made the threes. Pop and Chance did, but then Toussaint, though, 7 assists. I mean, he's able to distribute and dish it and get in that, use that New York toughness to get in the lane and then kick it out or whatever. I just kind of like the compliment there. And I think Toussaint is a fun addition and very complimentary to what like kind of Pop and Chance do so well. Yeah, kudos to Pop Isaacs, man. I mean, he's a fan favorite, and I think that he used to say on some scouting reports that I look at, highly flammable. You know, which I mean, watch out. I mean, he's a flamethrower if you let him get hot.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking from the timeline on a couple of those, and we'll see some more of that, I'm sure, during the season. You may ask yourself, if you weren't at the game or watching on television, how could you complain about the officials being in midseason form, calling 50 fouls in the game between the two teams? Just incredible work there, guys. Glad you guys are already limbered up. You may be asking yourself that, but you may not know that I can just see on the sheet that Doug Sermons was involved. So how could I not bitch about the officials, whether I see it or not? 50 personal fouls called between those two. We do see, as Chris mentions, Warren Washington foul out of the ball game. And you mentioned McMillan. We would be remiss if he was not a bigger part of this conversation before we move on to football, Chris, because this was a fairly big get. I think among those gets that you got this offseason, this was a fairly big one that maybe went sort of under the radar because of the conference that he came from. And I don't know what to expect as far as consistent impact. If you're anything near, to me, him as a double-digit scorer, particularly if he is not in the starting lineup and you're getting that off of the bench, I can get really, really excited about that. 17 for him, 5 for 13 shooting. He had 4 3-pointers he knocked down as well. As far as some of that newcomer impact, man, that dude really flashed among some of those others.
Yeah, you know, he was, I think, 40% plus from behind the arc at Grand Canyon. And I think that's what Grant and staff, you know, his staff kind of saw is like, man, this kid, he's again, the word is efficient. I mean, he didn't just shoot it a ton last year. We had over 100 3-point attempts, but again, he you know, I want to say it was maybe even like 44% last year from behind the arc, which that's big time, man. I mean, you're going to see plenty of guys that are pretty good shooters that shoot in the 32, 33% from behind the arc, but when there's a 4 in front of that deal, anything, you know, I mean, that's a lot of fun. And it wasn't just his ability behind the arc. I mean, I think he got to the rim in a key spot in the second half, and again, I look at it again, just a few turnovers. I mean, like if guards can play, be efficient, and take care of the ball, hit some shots, man, what more can you ask for? So again, this team is going to evolve. It's going to need to take some time. I mean, I think Devin Cambridge will come along. Darian Williams is going to come along. I think they call him EY, the big kid from France. I think is a big going to be a help to you. Robert Jennings, you know, who doesn't, you know, do, as I'm looking here, just under, you know, about 7 minutes of playing time, doesn't show up in the stat. He's a huge high character kid, a program type guy that'll be around here. He's going to get better as the year goes along. He's got a Big 12 body, all that stuff. I mean, but this was just kind of a fun starting point. And, you know, was this a scenario to where everything just kind of went perfectly? Because I look at all the things that you could, improve upon, or things that you know, oh man, but you won, you know, and you beat a damn good team, you know. I mean, because I think on most nights, I don't know if you can survive Warren Washington not helping you score some, or Darian Williams, you know, not rebounding like he usually did for the Wolfpack, you know, last year, and some of those things. But it was a low turnover game. I thought you shared it well, because everybody that will tell you that go watches this team practice, that they've worked a ton on being really fast, but also sharing it, and the ball doesn't hit the ground, you know, much at all. And I think that you see that by 16 assists to 10 turnovers, and you know, A&M only 8 assists. You know, I think those are key. If you find a team that's unselfish and sharing it this early in the season, boy, I think good things could happen.
Yeah, that assist number really stood out, especially on a night when you're pulling the trigger as often as you are from beyond the arc. You might not anticipate that assist number to be like it was ratio-wise as far as the baskets that you were making, but that was good to see. Okay, we got about a week and a half before we are back at United Supermarkets Arena for the real deal. Would love to hear from you, your reaction, particularly if you got to take in the game there in Denton in the YouTube comments. So let us hear from you. Coming up, dead ahead, we're switching gears. We are hell-bent for leather, literally. The battle for the saddle. Number 66 is coming up 3 days away, so get ready. It's a Thursday nighter here in the LBK. We're getting to it next on Locked On Texas Tech. First, today's episode brought to you by PrizePicks, the most exciting way to test your skills and play daily fantasy sports, and a great way to add juice to any game, anytime. And if you've got the game, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and a giant selection of players, projections, and stat categories are just part of what makes PrizePicks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. That's prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use our code LOCKEDONCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, right now, PrizePicks is going to match your first deposit up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDONCollege at prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Daily fantasy sports made easy. Along for the ride on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, free and available always on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts with Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan, putting basketball to the side for now as we look ahead to Red Raiders and Horned Frogs Thursday night from Jones Stadium. After an open week, you might have seen yesterday Texas Tech football Twitter saying Tuesday on a Sunday. That means Wednesday on a Monday. So keep up because we're halfway through game week, whether you knew it or not, on this Monday morning. Chris, looking forward to this one. We'll have plenty to discuss before we get to kickoff. But, of course, one of the bigger headlines heading into the week is anticipation that Baron Morton is back in the mix at the QB position, and anticipation that maybe you're looking like a much different team with that being the case.
Yeah, and my wish for like this week, as you think about it, man, is, you watch a lot of Big 12 action over the weekend, and, Kansas has a big moment. Now, all of a sudden, the top of the Big 12 standings are kind of jumbled up, and everybody's suggesting now it's not wasn't best for the league, and their playoff chances and this and that. I mean, who knows? But bunch of one-loss teams jumbled up at the top now. At the standings, it's not just Oklahoma and Texas and everybody else. Now, I think Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Iowa State, the states have all joined them. And so, as I was thinking about it over the weekend, driving back from Oklahoma on a Sunday, I was like, my wish for this week is man, I just, the old sign. I hope everybody has fun, when they hold up, because you haven't had. I was just thinking back to like last year, and I'll get to Barron in a second, because I think the remainder of the season is all about, I don't want to overstate it, but it's really all about him and the way, how comfortable he is, what you do around him. I mean, all those things. But what did they storm the field last year? 3 times? I know it was twice. Against Houston, against Texas, maybe against Oklahoma as well, where it's just like, the Jones AT&T was just kind of pandemonium. This year, I felt like that there's been some pandemonium versus Oregon and all that stuff, but I just wish for this week to be fun for the fans. I think these kids are like, desperate to deliver a result, and they're as frustrated as anybody, and all that, and nobody worries about the coaches and this and that. But I just, I know how much they want this, not just for their players, but for the fans as well. But I mean, this because this win would be one that you can kind of sink your teeth into a little bit. Yes, TCU is 4-4; they've lost 3 of 4, and all that, and so they're not anywhere near what they were last year. But they've had your number. I mean, they've had, you mentioned that saddle. You've only hit, since they reintroduced it, you've only had that 1 year, and that was 2018. Ironically enough, you beat them on a Thursday night. So just file that one away. But this is all about me showing up Thursday night to watch number 2. I think he was chomping at the bit in Provo. I think he was just on the cusp of being like cleared. It just wasn't right yet there at the time. And I just have firmly believe that had he played that night, the result would have been different. Nobody could convince me otherwise. I can't prove that. We'll never know. I go back to the two handoffs. That's a 14-point swing. Yeah. What'd you lose by? And I just think that because I just don't think BYU is very good, and you just unfortunately weren't good enough to do anything about it. But I'm all aboard the Morton Payne train, man. This week and going forward, man. I mean, I am. I'm ready to kind of see him, kind of blossom. I think he's matured and grown up over the last 4 weeks or so as he's seen it from a different view. They always say you could prepare like you're the dude when you're like not the guy, but realistically, do you really prepare like you're going to be the guy when you're not? And now all of a sudden in the last month, he is that dude. And I think he's gone about life differently. And I think he's ready to roll, man. So I'm here for, the number 2 Payne train. Sign me up. Choo, choo, choo. Yeah, but yeah.
You did it again, and you're making me wince with the Payne train, though. I don't know. We may need to retitle that for Baron Morton because it has been a train of pain in a lot of ways. How about I move?
I'm ready for him to dish it, Cowan. I want him to dish it out, spoon feed it to people.
Hey, and there's no way around the fact that if you have any hope, in my opinion at least, and in my opinion, this is a fact. If you have any hope of pursuing bowl eligibility, must win is the phrase Thursday night, right? You cannot give this one away at home and have any thought of getting to a 6th win. I don't think. How do you see that part of it?
You were 4-5 overall in a similar spot in your season last year. You're 3-5 right now, but you're right. You've got 4 opportunities left. You must win 3 of the 4 to continue your season. And some may think not a big deal. I still think it's a massive deal to try to get to a bowl game. I don't care where it is. Yes. And there's a couple of things. For Barron, for the Mike Dingles, the Dylan Spencers, and just the whole host of these freshmen that you're about to turn this program over to, the Jordan Sanfords, Brendan Jordan, all this stuff. But you also, I think, could have a couple of fun guys going through those bowl practices with you, and like Micah Hudson and Will Hammond and people like that, because that rule has, I believe, been adjusted. And if they're early enrollees, they can participate in these workouts as well. And I think they can't play in that game, but I just think that is get the machine rolling. And so it may not be a big deal to some, but I disagree. I think it's a massive deal to try to figure out a way to extend your season for the future and all those things, and to put some time in and kind of get your spring season started a bit early.
Well, and I think you want to sustain a certain level of success for your program as far as just trying to be back on a relevant radar. You've got to be back in a postseason before you take some bigger bites at the apple. Obviously, got to be back just playing bowl games regularly. And you're right, kind of forget about it, but a point at which you were 4-5 a season ago, and that is a distant memory given the way that you finished, obviously, that year. So maybe a little magic still left in the hat for Joey McGuire and company to do something similar here this year. But if you have any hope, it is a must-win, I think, Thursday night against the Horned Frogs. We'll have plenty more on this matchup as we get set for kickoff Thursday night from Jones Stadium. And yes, the 10 days between now and a basketball tip-off has grown a little longer, I think, as far as how it feels because of the result in that exhibition in Denton. So a whole lot to chew on there as far as meat on the bone. Hope to hear from you in the YouTube comments, how you saw it. Would love to hear from you there. And Chris, would love to hear from you again tomorrow. Let's do another episode. Call it a Tuesday edition. Thanks for the time as always, and we'll see you then.
Sounds good. It's going to be a short week, an odd one. Halloween is near, and the weather's changing, and all that goodness. But that's right. But football game on Thursday night this week. Hoops will have to wait for another week or so, but we'll be here all week with you. That's right. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And if you have any clue how to spell banana, throw that in the YouTube comments as well. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we'll see you for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.